Unfortunately, when the contractor, who hadn't done proper planning, began demoing the ceiling joists, the roof actually began to cave in. The building department was informed that work did not meet code and there weren't the proper permits, and so that homeowner had to take several steps back and redo work at their own expense and drove up the cost of remodeling significantly. You could end up spending way more money than you hope to save hiring a lesser company. If I could get every customer to consider 3 things before signing their agreement, one would be there's a number of different credentials, licenses, insurance, experience required to properly renovate a home. And so when getting quotes from contractors, it's essential that you compare more than just the price. The licensing that the company has maintained, the types of insurance that they carry, their process for how they design and renovate, their client experience. Does it include a portal for communication? Is the company established? Do they have a brick and mortar office? Does the company offer financing? Are they able to assist their clients with flexible payments? There is so much that goes into a comprehensive price quote, more than just the price itself. And if it's not included in the contract, that means it doesn't exist. So it's essential that you get clear contracts written from any company that include every detail of what's being done. Common mistakes when getting multiple quotes. All the time we meet homeowners that are in the process of shopping for a contractor. So they call multiple companies, and from there, every contractor wants to do things a little different. Most companies have their own way that they like to provide quotes. Some people use bracket pricing. A kitchen can cost $30,000 to $180,000. Some contractors only do paid design consultations in order to invest the time to develop a complete scope of work. Nearly never will 3 quotes for a similar project be apples to apples comparisons. And so it takes a lot of effort and follow-up for a homeowner to get clarity on what's not specified, what's not included in the quote. That's what I want to know. So questions that you might ask would be, what extra costs might I expect? Since it doesn't list the permits, would that be extra? What about rotten wood when that's discovered? How will you handle that? What if there are delays? What's your process for that? There's endless elements that go into providing a comprehensive price quote, including the timeline for how long work should take, how far out the company is for scheduling right now. Some projects require extensive permitting. Sometimes there's engineering. Even architects have to participate through some of the planning process. And so it can take months or even years sometimes just to work through complicated major renovation planning. I recently was offered the opportunity to review a past quote I submitted where my client was getting close to the point where they would be making a decision. They had my quote and one other quote, and our price was $8,000 apart. This was for a garage in White Lake. My quote had 7 pages of detail, the size of the garage, the shape of the roof, where there would be concrete, what type of roofing, what type of siding, where will there be windows, where will there be a door, the color of the material, the size of the building, every detail spelled out. My so-called competition had a napkin sketch of a square with no measurements and a price of $8,000 less than mine. There was no telling if this garage included a roof or not, if it included the driveway or not, if there'd be an electrical package, if there'd be metal roofing, and where the patio door would be. There's no telling what that other contractor planned on actually performing for the homeowner because there was absolutely no detail in there. So I proposed a 3-car garage with 1 large garage door with a circle asphalt driveway, metal roofing, an electric package, and extensive grading work, a concrete slab, and new gutters. Who knows how many of those features and what size the garage would be that my so-called competition was estimating for. We got a call from Ed years ago, and Ed had to fire the contractor he hired from church that had started work on his project without proper planning. The project included making a vaulted ceiling where there wasn't one before, on a lovely lake house. Unfortunately, when the contractor who hadn't done proper planning began demoing the ceiling joists, the roof actually began to cave in. Ed realized that the contractor he hired was outside of his experience level and wasn't qualified, so he got him out of there. Next, he brought me in. I was able to quickly identify where the mistakes were made during the process, and I was able to step in and resolve all of the structural issues. He was so stressed out and frustrated that he was ready to give up the vaulted ceiling design entirely and settle for just regular flat ceilings. But I was able to specify a proper header and create a structural ridge beam that allowed for the vaulted ceiling design to exist again. And today it's one of, I believe, everyone's favorite parts of the completed process. Bad contractors say the darndest things to homeowners. One of the most popular things I hear customers tell me that other contractors said to them that didn't make any sense was that you should pull all your own building permits to save money. Not only is the cost comparable for what a contractor pays to what a homeowner pays, but the person who applies for the building permit is the one who's responsible for the outcome of the work. So a homeowner who hires a professional contractor values the accountability being in the lap of the contractor. That contractor and their builder's license is at risk if they do work that's contrary to the code and to what the municipalities require. So a homeowner should never settle for pulling their own permits and taking all the risks. A recent example is a homeowner sold their home that was heavily remodeled, but they didn't get the right permits, and through the sales process, the building department was informed that work did not meet code and there weren't the proper permits, and so that homeowner had to take several steps back and redo work at their own expense and drove up the cost of remodeling significantly. This was required in order to complete the transaction to sell their home. If I could get every customer to consider 3 things before signing their agreement, 1 would be timelines, 2nd would be payment terms, 3rd would be verifying professional credentials. Doesn't matter what price a contractor gives you if they're not capable and qualified to perform your installation, if they're not available to complete your project within an agreeable time frame. We recommend that you don't just trust a contractor because they brought in a paper copy of their insurance. It could be someone else's insurance. I've heard Photoshop does exist. I hear that AI can create things that don't really exist. And so not only should you ask if your contractor is properly insured, but you must actually take the time to verify that their policy is valid and current. Insurance is extremely expensive, and if we didn't pay those high premiums, we would be able to offer lower prices today, but that would be a terrible value for any customer because the insurance is a non-negotiable and should be for every homeowner. You could end up spending way more money than you hope to save hiring a lesser company. You can go onto the state of Michigan's website and verify that a company actually carries a builder's license. You can see their history from the state of Michigan's database if they've had issues and problems or if they're in good standing. And then the last step before the contractor starts work, actually contact the agency who insures them to find out that their coverage is currently active. Just pretend someone's policy were expiring on Friday and they were starting your project on Monday. That could be a bad look, so it's your responsibility to do that last check just to keep the honest. Chances are it's probably a great contractor that you chose and their insurance will be valid, but that's not a risk that you should be willing to take. We understand that getting quotes is a process, and we urge homeowners to work through the process completely. This will vary from home to home and to project, but enough time should be invested in the process to make sure that you're verifying insurance and credentials, that you ask all the right questions about material selections and timeliness. Once you have all the information, I believe you'll have a calm feeling in your gut, and that's how you know that you're ready to move forward.